Today we need to talk about a move that exposes the entire AI power game and why the US might actually be helping China win the race it's trying to stop. Qualcomm, yes, American chip giant, negotiated a deal to design custom AI chips for ByteDance. Not smartphone chips, not consumer hardware, data center silicon. The kind of chip that powers AI agents, recommendation engines, and national scale compute. That and here's the part nobody wants to say out loud. If the US keeps restricting high-end GPUs while its own companies quietly build Chinese alternative stacks, China will surpass the US in AI and chips. Let's break it down. The US restricting GPUs but not the ASCIIs. Washington banned NVIDIA top GPUs from being sold in China. So what did China do? They pivoted. They started building domestic GPUs, domestic accelerators, domestic AI fabs, and to now custom ASCIIs with American companies. Qualcomm chips fall below the export control threshold, meaning they're legal, meaning China can buy them by the truckloads. The US is trying to slow China down. Instead, it forces China to build a parallel ecosystem. China is scaling compute faster than the US. China is now spending more on AI infrastructure than any country except the US. ByteDance alone is dropping 30 billion on compute this year. And here's the kicker. China doesn't need the world's best chip. It just needs enough chips. AI doesn't scale with perfection. AI scales with volume, and China is the king of volume. US companies want Chinese money. This is the part Washington can't control. American companies, Qualcomm, Intel, AMD, and NVIDIA want access to Chinese markets. It's too big to ignore. So what happens? They design and export safe chips, compliance-friendly accelerators, custom silicon. That's technically follows the rules. The U.S. government says decouple. The U.S. corporation says absolutely not. Money wins. China is building sovereign AI stacks. This is the real story. China is building its own fabs, its own GPUs, its own cloud, its own AI models, its own data centers, and now its own custom chips with American engineering. This is how you surprise a rival. You build an entire stack from the ground up. The US is trying to block the top of the stack. China is rebuilding the bottom. Guess who wins in the long run? What this means for Canada? Canada is caught in the middle of a global AI arms race with no domestic silicon. If China surpasses the US in compute, cloud prices rise, compute access tightens, AI sovereignty becomes impossible. Canada startups get squeezed, TikTok AI advantage grows. Ottawa faces national security nightmare. Canada becomes a compute importer in the world where compute is power. The uncomfortable truth, the US is trying to slow China down, but with every restriction it forces China to innovate faster. And every time China needs a workaround, an American company steps in and sells it. This is the paradox of the AI Cold War. The US government wants to control, the US corporations want to profit, China wants independence. And China is the only one playing the long game. If this continues, China won't just catch up with it, it will pass the US permanently. And Qualcomm will deal with ByteDance is the clearest sign yet. And that's the story. Like, follow, and subscribe. We'll be back.